It's been 6 years. 6 long years since the world collectively bawled their eyes out. For a game that makes you ponder heavily about life, thinking about those 6 years passing as Finding Paradise was released was kind of surreal. You jump around in time within the game itself, and in many ways I had moved much farther in my own life timeline. However, jumping back into the realm of Freebird games brought about another sense as well. One of a lingering mystery. You see, last time we left off with To the Moon and its mini episodes, we didn't have a clear picture. The story concluded, and our tears were quickly replaced with confusion. What we were left with was a puzzle that still needed to be solved, but we didn't have all the clues yet. Fast forward to the release of Finding Paradise, where we now have further motives added to the equation. However, before diving into the nitty-gritty of speculation, please, if you haven't played Finding Paradise, go out and do so. It truly isn't worth spoiling, and the experiences within Freebird Games creations are worth experiencing firsthand. This video will always be here when you get back, so do yourself a favor and take an emotional and reflective journey. Major plot spoilers lie ahead. For those of you still here, it's time to put on our thinking caps. Last time we were left with a lot of confusing concepts. We finished our duty in To the Moon, and then in the holiday episodes, we were given glimpses that things were not all as they seemed. Neil was running his own personal experiments on his tampered version of the machine, Ava witnessed a copy of herself while driving home, and we see Ava strapped to a machine at the end of the night. In my earlier theory video, I talked about how Neil potentially became self-aware that he was existing in a memory, and thus this was why the sound recorder given to him for the holiday actually was more significant than it seemed. It was like a token in Inception. A recording wouldn't retain any recorded information if it took place inside of someone's mind. However, the events of Finding Paradise shaped things a little differently. In Finding Paradise, we spend our time diving through the memories of a man named Colin. For those who play Bird Story, a short game that came out a few years back, you'll realize that this boy is the same person in Finding Paradise. On his deathbed, we dive into his mind to make him happy, although Neil and Ava don't actually know what they're looking for. Through a series of weird occurrences, they hop back and forth between times in Colin's life, and encounter a girl named Faye. Thinking this was a regretful love interest that Colin didn't act on, they eventually trace Faye all the way back to the time Colin encountered his actual wife. But they were left with a conundrum. Things didn't add up, and that's when they realized this man had created his own reality. Colin lived in a fantasy world within his head majority of the time as a kid, and this is why Bird Story seems so abstract and artsy. We later realized that Faye isn't actually a real person at all. She was an imaginary friend that Colin created to fill a gap in his heart. He didn't have any friends, and his first real friend was actually a bird he had rescued. Once this bird had healed and flown away, he carried down the mentality of this bird and created the image of Faye from it. He even went on to become a pilot because of the inspiration he took from this connection with his bird and his love for paper airplanes. For many years, he kept to himself and only talked to Faye in his mind. He'd write what she would say in his notebook, and he was content with his way of life. However, one day she insisted that he needed to depart from his fantasy world and focus on the real world. If he didn't, he would miss out on all the beautiful memories life had to offer, since he hadn't actually started living yet. Colin wasn't ready to say goodbye forever to his imaginary friend. But it had to happen. Faye faded away, and he lived out his life. When we're diving through the memories in this game, we eventually realized what the purpose was behind all of this. Diving into Colin's mind wasn't to help him as a person, it was to bring happiness to Faye. Faye, who was an imaginary person who only existed in the mind of a lucid dreamer. Someone who technically didn't exist. The only time Faye ever interacted with another person and felt real was when she encountered Ava and Neil in Colin's head. In some ways, this gave her a sense of purpose. It was the first time she was acknowledged by others. During this entire process, we were actually using an experimental version of the machine that Neil had been tampering with. However, Ava isn't aware of this, but some of the other doctors discovered this during the course of the game. This version of the machine has greater accessibility and the power to capture instances of the mind. It essentially has certain features disabled, which is actually a huge red flag in the eyes of the corporation that makes it. Neil was working on this behind people's backs, and honestly, he put Ava at great risk by doing so. During the story, Neil actually captures and downloads Faye into the helmet system before Colin passes on. The reason he does this is part of a greater mystery though. However, I have my speculations. Neil wants a greater purpose for this helmet. Giving people temporary memories that fade away on death is such a waste of potential. While Neil's intentions aren't outlined for us, I think we can piece together what is happening. Like I speculated in my last video, Neil appears to be suffering from some kind of health condition. He has to take medication to stop the pain, and this becomes a further plot point in Finding Paradise. He experiences outbursts of pain, but realizes he forgot his medication in the car and has to go get it. However, he doesn't ever tell anyone that he is not well. He hides it from the world, and this is what I believe fuels his drive to work on the helmet. You see, he wants this technology for another purpose. It isn't to further explore the possibilities of diving into memories. It's a way for him to keep living. Neil is dying, and Faye is his ticket to living. Allow me to explain. It has been hinted at many times in the games that Neil isn't of good health. YouTube user Kerpunked outlined it pretty well in my last video's discussion. Neil starts off with an unfull health bar when the fight with the squirrel starts, and at the fair when you talk to the fortune teller, he says that he's screwed regardless of what his fortune is. His medication is only prolonging the inevitable, but instead of accepting his fate, he's trying to change it. He's finding paradise, a place where his life won't be cut short because he was dealt a bad hand. A dream world is only temporary and it ends when you end. But the existence and extraction of Faye changes everything. Something that wasn't living was able to feel as though it lived. The essence of the mind manifested itself into something that existed. And if this could be done with Colin's mind, maybe it could be done with Neil's. I think this is what paradise is. It has double meaning. Neil wants to use the technology of Sigmund Corp to create an artificial world that he can transfer his mind over to when he dies. He wants to preserve himself in a way similar to Faye. Beyond that, this paradise could be a place that everyone could be transferred over to when they die. A place that they can have anything they desire. It's like that episode of Black Mirror, where everyone has the ability to transfer to another world from their deathbed, where they are forever young. I also think the game trailer hints at this as well. In the trailer for the game, we see someone's electrocardiograph go flatlined, showing that they died. However, after this death, the heartbeat is restored to life. I strongly believe this symbolizes the concept that Neil is trying to achieve, giving the devices of Sigmund Corp far more potential than they currently have. This is Neil's desire, and he's willing to do anything to make it work. I'm curious to see what the next installments will bring. But now that I dumped that on all of you, I'd of course love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Neil is trying to build a paradise? Please leave a comment below. And with that, thanks for tuning in to this adventure through a mindscape. If you want to watch my old theory video about To the Moon, go ahead and give it a click. The topics within will certainly still play a role in what is happening in this series. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until my next video, cheers.